As more than 120 million gallons of oil have spewed from beneath the Earth's crust, Tony Hayward, BP's chief executive, is managing the crisis today from the Isle of Wight, where he's watching his boat Bob compete in the J.P. Morgan Asset Management Island Race, which is one of the largest yachting races in the world. He's there with his son, a father and son day out. He says it doesn't matter where he is, he's in constant touch with the crisis efforts. Of course, his boat Bob is floating atop clean, clear, cool, pristine waters, at least for now. I cannot help but wonder if Mr. Hayward is even remotely present enough to understand the irony of his position today. This irony is playing out, meanwhile, under a profound astronomical alignment called the Cardinal Grand Cross, which is comprised of 4 squares and 2 oppositions in astrological lingo. I'm not an astrologer, but I've been reading a lot of articles in the last few days on this configuration. It's been called by one witty astrologer a time to call the devil back to hell. I kind of like that. There's something in it that has such an essence that in our guts we can feel what that means. It means it's time to start straightening things out around here. In brief, this is a time of profound change. The existing structures are destined to either transform or die. The cosmic die has been cast, and there is no turning back, and this is going to be playing out over the next couple of years. It is solidly in place now, however. This is all the more profound in combination with the fact that there is a full moon lunar eclipse tomorrow night, the 26th, on this Grand Cross day. This is going to be heightening all of the emotions surrounding the Gulf Coast oil spill and all of the other emotions that human beings are experiencing, because what is in the macro is in the micro as well. This affects each and every one of us. As these old and new paradigms compete, and I shouldn't even say that, the old paradigm is competing for its survival. The new paradigm is competing to emerge. The Gulf event is going to be used to exploit and progress certain political agendas, for example, such as cap and trade. That's one of the downsides of this energy. This is looking at how we're going to tear apart old structures. We need to become much more savvy about this, or by default, we are going to perpetuate the old paradigms of exploitation and control. As best I can understand, cap and trade is yet another manipulation for control of the Earth's energy resources, which will be meted out by a handful of individuals to once again benefit a handful of entities. He who controls the Earth's energy supplies, in short, controls its people. We desperately need to become educated as to the implications of cap and trade, just as one action point here. At the same time, the beautiful part of this is that this event is also going to be used to raise our compassion levels and our consciousness regarding our relationship to the planet. I'm sure you, as I, have seen many videos and many emails circulating around the internet calling for action in terms of heartfelt action. Dr. Masaru Emoto's, for one, is very beautiful. He's calling for all of the people of the earth to begin sending love to the waters of the Gulf. And I can't think of anything more appropriate. We know from pure science alone that water does hold intention. If there was ever a time for us to send a loving intention to the earth's waters, certainly that will be now. Whether or not that would stop the spewing of the oil, I don't know. And in fact, at this point, I'd like to insert a little bit of a personal insight I had. As all of this was going on about a week ago, I chose to do a little meditation on it and check into it from my own higher perspective. The first thing I asked was, what will it take to cauterize this gushing oil? It's just like an artery. In fact, that's what I was shown. It's no different than a major artery in the human body that has been blown out. If we were watching a human being, it would be the same kind of disaster we're watching from aerials of this Gulf, with this red oil spreading throughout the entire Gulf. The body of the individual would become weaker by the moment as we watch them bleed to death, and everyone knows what that feels like, and that's essentially what we're feeling like and what we're experiencing as we watch this event in the Gulf. Now, what I saw was that there's nothing we can do to cauterize it with our consciousness. That's not going to happen. Then I said, well, what is it going to take to stop the flow of the oil? And the next thing was one snapshot. It was very silent, very quick, and it was showing me from the perspective of the ocean floor. And what I saw was an area that had creased and buckled in on itself. there was a lot of land that had been moved and a lot of sand. And the sand had all buckled down inward, and it essentially capped the area that was previously spewing oil. Now, this has a lot of implications. After that meditation, Richard Hoagland and a few other people started posting on the internet saying that some of their inside sources were saying that there could be a natural gas explosion in addition to this, and the evacuation of all of this would create a cavitation. And where there's a cavitation, there would be a natural implosion. And so this is exactly what I was seeing, was this buckled earth, sealed off, quiet. I don't know what happened in the interim, because this would indicate that there's going to be some earth movement with it if this is what indeed does happen. In addition to that, if you have earth movement, you would have the potential for tsunami. And again, I think most of you have been reading about theories that there is a potential for this if there's any kind of collapse at all of the sea floor. So that being said, I mean, that's not very hopeful in and of itself, yet at the same time, we have to really take stock. This is a time to take practical actions, especially if we're living along the Gulf. And most of us are not going to be directly impacted around this planet by this event. We will eventually by the oceans, watching the animations of where this oil is flowing. This could be devastating by the end of the summer. Some of the animations are showing this flow going all the way around Florida and then out into the Atlantic Ocean at large. So that can't be underestimated, and we have to wait and see how that plays out. But for the moment, the people who it's really impacting are the people along the coast, and we've seen many human interest stories on this, and certainly it would seem time, if you know anyone who lives along the coast, if you are related to someone who lives there, we have to begin opening our hearts to each other at this time. This has been devastating to their way of life, especially for those people who rely upon the bounty from the oceans to make their living and have done so for generations. Just like all of the rest of the people on this planet that are being confronted with this astrological configuration at this time to force us to look inside and evaluate what is working for us and what is not, down to the deepest psycho-spiritual levels, to the very practical levels. Here's a practical situation unfolding in front of us that is no longer working for a very large number of unfortunate people. So this is the time. If I were giving advice and could wave my magic wand, I'd say if you live along the Gulf, find family who doesn't and get out, because this situation isn't going to get any easier for you, and start refashioning a new life however you can. No matter how frightening it sounds, change is frightening for all of us. But the people along the coast are going to have essentially the magnifying glass over their lives, and we're all going to be watching how they're responding to this. So this is an opportunity to begin embracing the change that's happening for anybody that's living along the coast. Fundamentalist Christians have pointed to Revelations 8:8, where the waters of the oceans turn red, and this is supposed to be a sign of the end of times. All I can say is, let's bring it on. Let's hope that this is the end of the unconsciousness that has pervaded all of our lives, and let's pray that the universe shows us all some grace for our trespasses against our beautiful host, Mother Earth, while we begin to employ some courage and some visions in looking at the solutions. And finally, I think we all have to look at Revelations, and we're right in the middle of it. That's why we have to look at it. All of the darkest deeds of mankind are being revealed and unveiled right now. So we can no longer plead ignorance. We can choose to ignore, which is what ignorance is, that which is being shown to us because we're too uncomfortable stepping up to the plate, to making our own personal decisions as to how we might not be in alignment with the highest and best good for these changing times, but that wouldn't be wise. This is a time that is priming us to raise our individual and collective consciousness. Let's not squander this precious opportunity.